Now that we have gone through the first section of this project, we're going to go to the next. So we stopped kind of in the middle around step 3, and we added some spatter to that step. And we're going to go ahead and move on to step 4, 5, 6, and 7. So the first one is the bevel, highlight, and shadow, which are these large sections of highlight and shadow. And we're also going to do, we're kind of going to skip the paint the mortar. We're going to do the cut lines, dark cut lines, and bright cut lines. And we're also going to do a cast shadow. And instead of taking advantage of the painterly aspects of the program, we're going to take advantage of the computer aspects of the program. So we're going to make a couple layers. We're going to make a highlight. I'm looking to see what they call that. Dark liner and light liner. So we're going to make dark liner, oops, light liner, shadow, and cast shadow. We're going to start with these layers, and we're going to start with doing just one block. And once you know how to do one block, you can do a bunch. So I'm going to go ahead and do a pretty regular brush. I'm going to go with a oil paint because it's my standby. And so I'm going to go with an oil paintbrush, and I'm going to grab the light. I'm going to grab the highlight wash color, and I'm going to make sure I'm on the highlight layer. And now there are a couple ways I can do this. I'm just going to do one. Just going to do one block. Okay. So there are a couple ways I can do this. I could do a selection, and I could do this one right here, which is a polygonal selection tool, and I could select just that certain amount, making sure to cut my corners in a rectangular fashion. Now, for some of you, this is actually going to be very difficult because your computer's going to freeze a lot. Again, I'm going to hit Control S every once in a while to save. And I'm going to grab this, and I'm not going to worry about making, I'm going to paint that, yeah, that's a fine color. I am not going to worry about making this thin yet. Now I'm going to deselect, and I'm a little unhappy with how cut that corner is, so I'm going to select it and hit Control X to just straighten it out. So once I've done that, I can do the same thing, polygonal selection tool. I'm going to do the shadow now. Grab this shadow color on my brush to prepare myself, make sure I'm on the shadow layer. Now the other thing you could do is you could grab your brush, make it the right size. Okay. So that's really a good size for that. And I'm gonna press down, and when I do that, I'm gonna hold Shift, press and drag. And that'll give me a very straight line. I can't be unstraight. Sometimes you'll see that it won't do that. And then you can take the selection tool and trim it to the point where it's perfect. I'm gonna lower the opacity so that I can see the edge of the block. You will then have to trim your 45-degree angle in there. Okay, so I'm gonna make that back up to 100. I'm gonna grab my brush tool and actually I'll lower it a lot. There really is a little bit right here that still needs to be done. I'm going to grab my rectangle tool and trim it again. Be more careful not to get a little overzealous. Okay, and hit save again. So you can do one of those two. So you can draw it and then erase what you don't need, or select just what you want to paint and do that. And you could very carefully draw it as well. So that's our shadow and our highlight. Rearrange those. Our dark liner. So I'm going to take both of those down to about 35-40%. And that is a nice step. I'm going to take the dark liner color, and what we're going to do is we're going to grab the brush tool. We're going to grab this brush. I'm going to make it, with a straight line brush, I'm going to make it nice and small. And I'm going to draw, undo. I'm going to change this brush because it's giving me a light color even though I'm holding a dark color. Oh, that's why, perhaps, because the opacity is down. I'm going to trace over the line we've already created. Now, I'm going to switch back and forth to reset and get me another line over here and down along here. Now, if you look in your instructions, it shows you to draw these cut lines, okay? I'm going to switch again, or I'm going to turn it off and back on again in order to get this 45 down here. Okay, and I want to be pretty particular about these lines. You'll figure out why in a second. So I'm going to be really particular about that dark liner. Now the light liner, I'm going to grab it, and I'm going to, whoops, undo. I'm going to switch back again so that I get a new brush. And I'm going to do the same set of lines inside here, reset it, grab my corner, come up, and highlight this whole side. It's a little not straight. There we go. I'm going to reset it again and highlight the top edge. And there we go. Now, I'm going to switch back to a freehand brush so that I don't start making lines everywhere. So now I have light liner and dark liner. The cast shadow is just going to be around. Now, it also, if you look up in your navigator from far away, that looks much better, doesn't it? And you can really see from far away that it's really making a pop look for your bricks, which is very nice. And let's see, the last part will be a cast shadow, and the cast shadow is really going to be against that wall back there. But there will be some in here. We'll cover that in a second. So right now we have these four. What I'm going to do with these four is I'm actually, instead of redrawing this a million times, I am going to select these 4 layers, and I am going to group them together, and then I'm going to copy and paste that group. And I have a whole nother group. Now, what it will actually behoove me to do is to set my opacities. So I set my opacities at like 30 for those, for the highlight and shadow color, but the liner colors I also want to bump down a little bit. The dark liner looks good about there, and the light liner again looks good about there. Actually, I can bump the dark liner up a little bit. So for my colors, it's at about 75% and 55%. You want those to be nicely set before you copy and paste so that those values duplicate. Once you copy and paste, all you need to do is grab with your layer selection tool, and you'll actually end up grabbing the entire group, which is great. If you need to fuss to place it, you can always use your arrow keys. When you're doing your side ones, let them move all the way off of your page. And go ahead and just paste and place all of these. Now, if you don't want this many layers when you're done, what you can easily do is combine some or flatten them. Now this is working very well for these large blocks, but my small blocks At least that one that I've put in so far looks a little short, and I'll show you what to do to fix that in just a second. This one looks fine. Make sure that you don't hit paste too many times and not move it. Otherwise this block, that first block that you did this on, will end up looking very, very thick. So this one right here, I love to pull, not that one. I'm gonna have to find where that brick is. So there it is, it's this one right here. So I'm gonna click on that group, and it's a little tall. So actually what I'm gonna do is gonna go over to the selection tool, hold, grab the transform tool, whoops. I'm gonna exit, or click this to say, hey, no, I don't want to do that. Control Z, deselect, let go, let go. Okay, I'm gonna save. So this is the one I want to take and change. So what I can do, select them all, edit, pre-transform, and now I'm holding all those layers together, and I'm just going to grab it center top and squish it down just a little bit. It looks like, actually, it's not letting me grab all of them at the same time. And especially not staying at that opacity. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab all of them and I'm going to collapse them first, and then I'm going to do what I just did. I do, however, want to note that the light liner seems to have disappeared. I'm going to undo until I get that back. There we go. So I'm going to collapse them now that they're together. Go File, I'm sorry, Edit, Free Transform, and I'm going to scrunch the top just a tad. That makes that one just a little bit different, but it fits, so I'm gonna leave it. Now I could combine all of these groups together. I could also rename them so that they're not all different, and combine them onto one layer. But when they're on different layers, I do have some editability. You can see this is one of the reasons why it's really nice to have all of the have all your opacities set before you move. If you do have to change your opacities on all the shadows or all the highlights or something like that, it might be worth it to not duplicate them as groups, but as individual items, and then group all your highlights together, group all your shadows together, etc. I am going to take out my cartoon lines because they're a little too harsh, and now I'm going to add my drop shadow, which is my my cast shadow, which is my last step in this process. So I'm going to take my shadow color, which is this one. I am going to bump it up, and I am going to use my straight line tool. I'm going to see what that looks like. I don't like the amount of, I'm going to grab an acrylic brush. I don't like the amount of gray that's coming through. So I'm going to try a different brush. I like that as far as the shadow goes. So I'm going to go ahead and use it. I'm going to do a freehand brush, and I'm just going to hold the shift key. So press and then hold the, hold the shift key and then press in order to get the shape that I want. And I'm just going on this side. I'm going to take my selection tool. I'm going to take the polygon selection tool, and I'm going to give it a little bit of a angle right there. I'm going to cut off you know, I'm not going to cut that off. I'm just going to grab it and move it down below the stone, so it has to be behind, and then I'm going to knock the opacity down. Okay. Yay! And there's our cast shadow. I'm going to add a little bit more cast shadow, and I think actually this will look better as an airbrush. You don't have to do it as an airbrush. I just want to see what it'll look like as an airbrush. So I'm going to put this back on top, and there we go. And I'm going to put it all the way on the top. Okay. And now I'm going to go ahead and do it right on the bottom of this to help separate those stones from each other. And again, I'm holding shift, so every time I land with my brush, it gets stuck going exactly in the horizontal motion. And I'm going to end up getting under here and under here, and I'm going to end up getting here. Oops. Sometimes if you get going on a diagonal, it will keep you on that diagonal. And I'm being relatively soft, even though I know that I'm going to knock the opacity down. I want it to be nice and soft. There we go. So that is the end of that project. If you want to do your cast shadow with the airbrush as well, you're welcome to. It helps to be familiar with different kinds of brushes and to use different things. That is the end of this project, and I want you guys to turn it in, and again, both a RIF format and a JPEG. So remember to save it as a RIF format first, and go save as, JPEG, and save. It's warning you that you'll lose your layers if you change it to a JPEG, which is fine. That's the point of changing it to a JPEG, is to make it a flat image that everyone can read. And then choose your quality and click OK. And that is all. Thank you.